Retro.
Hey, this is Catherine Tabor, Senator Padme Amidala from Star Wars The Clone Wars, and you're listening to Jay and Dennis on Podcast Stardust. Stay on the light side.
Welcome to Podcast Stardust. This is the fully armed and operational podcast dedicated to Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. I'm Dennis Keithley.
And I'm Jay Krebs.
And it's time to wrap up the week with some recent Star Wars news. But before we get into that, Jay, you want to remind everybody where we can be found on social media?
Well, no news here. We are always found on Facebook and Instagram at Podcast Stardust.
All right. The dish is lying. The signal's boosted to maximum output. The shield is down. We are now broadcasting to the galaxy. So most of this news is actually from like the last 2 weeks, but I really wanted to concentrate on the Mandalorian and Grogu teaser trailer last week. So we just kind of put a lot of this stuff on the back burner, mostly because most of it just isn't burning hot topics right now. But leading off with a little bit of news from television, Bryce Dallas Howard was at LA Comic-Con and was asked about season 2 of Ahsoka. And she did not have any big details to reveal, but she just gushed about the whole thing and showered Dave Filoni with all kinds of praise. So I was trying to transcribe what she said while I was watching the video, but she kept saying it so quickly. But so anyway, she said, it's good. It's so good. It's beautiful, thrilling, romantic, and a few other things, which I didn't catch. And all the things you want in an epic story. She went on to call David, like I know him, Dave Filoni, a visionary, someone she adores, and confirmed that she is directing 2 episodes of season 2. So you would expect someone who's directing a couple episodes to say it's good. I mean, they're not going to say, yeah, I directed this and it completely stunk. I don't know what the hell we're doing. But the thing that caught my mind in there was the romantic notion that she put in there. And I'm trying to decide if she meant that romantic as in an amorous way or romantic as in kind of like how you might describe epic or time period. You know what I'm saying? Like, the swashbuckling pirate era type thing. But
right.
I mean, all we can do is speculate on what she meant by that. But what do you think?
Well, maybe it's a little bit of both, but I would almost probably lean towards more of a poetic interpretation of that, just because the fact that from what we know of season 2 of Ahsoka, it's going to lean pretty heavily into a lot of Clone Wars lore, especially if we're getting into things like Mortis and, also with Rebels and that whole, time period, and just the fact that so many people adored and still do, of course, we are 2 of those people, that animated series, and just being able to tell those stories from those points of view. I'm kind of leaning more towards that, like I said, that poetic romanticism, but maybe there will be a little bit of amorous romance in there too. I guess you never know. What do you think?
And that's just it. It's like, I don't even have anything to speculate off of to figure out what that means. It's not like we have any teasers. We've had we've seen the new Balin skull in there. Okay, great. And we've seen Rosario Dawson put on Instagram, a picture of her shadow, as she's in the Ahsoka costume. But we haven't really seen much from season 2 of Ahsoka to fuel any type of speculation there. And beyond that, it's like, unless there's just new characters that we don't know about, I'm not even sure where the romance would be. And the only thing that could be a possibility would be Sabine and Ezra. But they're in 2 completely different galaxies when this whole thing starts. And beyond that, I kind of feel like they developed a brother-sister type of relationship, even though, when Rebel started, Ezra was kind of crushing on her. It just doesn't seem like that's a relationship anymore. It's much more of a sibling type of a relationship.
No, I 100% agree with you on that, and it's kind of like the whole Luke and Leia thing. Luke was crushing on his sister before he knew she was his actual blood sister, and it's sort of the same with Ezra and Sabine, I feel like, as well, but they're not obviously blood related, but yeah, it would just be a little weird, I
Yeah.
think.
The only other thing that just occurred to me is that perhaps the romantic thing is you suggested poetic, but how perhaps it's also the nostalgic aspect of it when we saw the world between Ahsoka and Anakin, and maybe that's what she mean, harkening back to another age type of
Mhm,
thing. Maybe we'll get more scenes like that between those two
mhm, mhm.
characters. So I don't
Yeah,
know. It's hard to say, but fun to
yeah,
speculate about.
yeah, and Star Wars, they say is like poetry, it rhymes.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, moving on, we had a new trailer for Star Wars Visions Volume 3, and they also announced the voice cast for like all these episodes. I'm not going to go through and read who's going to be doing voices in all the cast. One, because I didn't recognize most of the names, and two, I'm assuming most of our listeners won't as well. There's a couple notable exceptions that I'll call out as we go through this, but I thought we'd just talk about this teaser a little bit and maybe look at some of the episodes or just discuss some of the episodes we're most looking forward to, because this is coming out at the end of the month on October 29th, and I
Yeah.
cannot wait to cover it here on the podcast. But what were some things that stood out to you from the trailer, Jay?
Well, first of all, it's funny because I was just telling you before we started recording that this trailer kind of blindsided me because
Hmm.
as much as we knew we had this on the back burner and it was going to be coming out towards the end of the year this year, it's like, whoa, I guess it already is October and this is going to be coming out at the end of this month. So I missed the trailer until just a couple of days ago and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is actually here."
Yeah.
So, but there's a few things that stood out to me and a couple of things that I'm really looking forward to. And the first one is, and I was stopping the trailer because it goes by so fast. I mean, it's just like boom, boom, boom. You blink and you miss it, literally. But there is a Twi'lek looking character that looks like I'm assuming is in the Ronin
Yeah.
um, yeah, the Ronin episodes, and she looks so fierce, and she's got this, again, they're always known for the different types of lightsabers that they have, and we saw the one that was like the umbrella, the
Hmm.
first time around.
Yeah, I had thought the exact same thing when I saw it. Yeah, you and I are on the same wavelength there.
Yep, yep. So that was a big one for me. And then of course I've just been so looking forward to the sequel, if you will, to The Ninth Jedi, The Child of Hope. So there
Mhm.
was a lot there. I'll tell you what though, there's so much contrast between, the Ronin, for example, with the black and white versus just some beautiful coloration that I
Mhm.
noticed throughout some of these and just the stunning way that a lot of these were animated. And I am definitely looking forward to Black, the one that is the psychedelic stormtrooper one.
Mhm.
That's super cool, but I also liked seeing the Ewoks in there too. There was quite a few scenes of some Ewoks, so I'm very intrigued by that.
Yeah.
So, just a few things that stood out to me, but what about you?
Well, I'm a huge, huge fan of the Ronin, the duel episode that we got
Mhm.
in season one,
Yes,
and
you
so I'm
are.
super excited that we're getting another episode of that. We've talked about the comic tie-in that's come with the Ronin, and then of course we also discussed the book, the Ronin, which to me didn't quite live up to how good the anime was in
Mhm.
this situation. But every scene that we got, you mentioned the Ewok, well, it looks like it's straight out of there, and the Twi'lek that's in there. Plenty of quick shots of the Ronin dueling throughout the trailer, so that really caught my attention. There's a really great image of some AT-ATs breaking through the ice and emerging like from a frozen lake or something that
Oh, yeah.
I thought was really quite spectacular. I'm a little nervous about the rest of what I think that episode is, but we can kind of discuss that as we go through the synopsis that they gave for all the episodes here. But then, there was a shot of some X-wings flying in formation that looked really cool, and then a lot of different Jedi that are in action. Some of those just look, first-rate animation
Oh,
with
yeah.
Jedi doing their thing. So yeah, it really got my attention. I'm with you. You mentioned how you this is kind of fallen off your radar. And I think one of the reasons for that is that, this was something that they devoted a whole panel to at Star Wars Celebration in Japan this year. We were kind of laughing at the time that they did the whole thing in Japanese. And while they did transcribed it into English on the monitors there at Celebration, they didn't for those of us watching at home. And so it
Right.
was a little hard to follow. And so,
Mhm.
they told us some things, and I'm not sure that we're getting I'm not sure how much this information we're about to go over is brand new, but it was so long ago, and they just haven't really promoted it much since then. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I mean, it's you would have thought they would have kind of started building the hype a little bit more than just 1 month out for this thing. So yeah, I agree with you there. Okay, so the episode information that we got, like I said, I'm not going to go through all the credits for all the voice actors because I don't know who they are. I'm not going to be able to pronounce all the names, and I don't want to disrespect people. But the first one is The Duel Payback. So this is the sequel to that Ronin episode, The Duel. It is being put out by the Kamikaze Duga plus Anima Studios. And the synopsis they get is, with the help of some unexpected allies, Ronin faces off against his greatest foe, a twisted Jedi known as the Grandmaster, who is bent on revenge. And this is being directed by Takanobu Mizuno. So I'm assuming from this description that they are going with this notion that there is still some sort of a galactic emperor and the Jedi are his shogun type leaders of his
Mhm.
empire. And so, we've got this grandmaster here, and the Sith are just kind of the rebels in this case. They're not the people twisted by evil in this situation. And so, but the thing is that grandmaster stands out to me, and I don't want to read too much into this, but who is the grandmaster that we know of in Star Wars? That's Yoda.
Mhm.
So I'm assuming they mean something different, but that did catch my attention. What do you think?
No, I think that's a good call on your part for sure because and as we know, this particular, anime has kind of twisted what we know of Sith and Jedi on its ear. So,
Uh-huh.
it'll be no pun intended with Yoda.
Yeah.
But, but at any rate, no, I think that's a good call as far as the way that the Sith are being represented here as well.
Uh-huh. All right. Well, moving on to the next one, we've got The Song of Four Wings, and this is by Project Studio Q. I have no idea what it's called in Japanese, but that's what they listed it as here. The description is, a princess turned rebel protects a child from the might of the empire on a snowbound planet, and this is directed by Hiroyasu Kobayashi. Again, apologies for any mispronunciations there. So, Jay, this has kind of been a gripe that I've had, is that it seems like an awful lot of Star Wars lately is following this model where there is some sort of a warrior, Jedi, Mandalorian, whatever you want to put in there, that is protecting a child in here.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I get that Project Studio Q is not working arm in arm with the story group over at Lucasfilm to coordinate stories and stuff like that. But uh, this is the episode I think those ads come from based on the description. But
Yes, I
there's
think you're
other
right.
scenes that I think tie into that from the trailer that didn't excite me as much. But what do you think of this?
No, I'm with you, and I guess it's become kind of a trope, in Star Wars to protect the child kind of thing,
Yeah.
but yeah, I did like that visualization, as you said, of the AT-ATs coming out of the snow, so I guess we'll have to wait and see how this one plays out.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
The next one is the sequel to The Ninth Jedi, which is called The Ninth Jedi Child of Hope. And this is by Production IG. And the description is, pursued by Jedi hunters and blasted adrift into space, Kara encounters a seemingly abandoned ship tended to by a mysterious droid. And this is directed by Naoshi Shiotani. Again, pronunciations, I'm doing my best here. But this description really intrigues me. Ninth Jedi is one of the episodes that you and I were high on when we talked about season 1 of Vision. So I'm really eager for this one.
Me too, and this is another one that, again, with the visualizations and everything that is shown in the animation is just stunning,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so looking forward to it.
All right. The fourth episode is called The Bounty Hunters, which is a very Star Wars title. And it's
Mhm.
by I'm not sure if this is supposed to be WIT Studio or WIT Studio. And the description is: a rogue bounty hunter takes on a job for a shady industrialist that has unexpected consequences for her and her droid. And it's directed by Junichi Yamamoto. So that's not a lot to go off of. None of these are. But without having a previous episode to lean into here, I mean, I like the idea. Bounty hunters, Star Wars is full of them, from Boba
Mhm.
Fett, Cad Bane, Bosk, you name it. There's tons of them in Star Wars there. So this could go any number of ways and be interesting. So yeah, color me intrigued. I don't know what else really to say about it though.
Yeah, I mean, Rogue Bounty Hunter, you got me right there.
Mhm.
Love some bounty hunter action. And Shady Industrialist? Wonder what they're into. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that'll be a good one to dive into.
All right. The fifth episode is the first of two episodes being put out by the Kinema Citrus Company studio. This one's called Yuko's Treasure, and it's described as: a sheltered orphan teams with a street rat kid to rescue his droid caregiver and find a long lost treasure. And it's directed by Masaki Tachibana. I'm doing my best.
That
So,
was
yeah, this description, just the description, and I realize it could be something completely different, but this is giving me Skeleton Crew vibes
Oh,
uh,
yeah, I could see that.
when I read this. And it seems kind of like that Goonies like type of adventure sound to it, and the droid, SM-33 SME, notion there. And so you have to find a long lost treasure. I mean, that's what they were doing in Goonies. So again, this is another one I'm intrigued. I could not necessarily match up any of the imagery from the trailer to this, but I like this idea. What do you think?
Yeah, that was what was really hard for me as well because like I said, it was going by so fast, and unless you really put it into slow motion and try to analyze every single frame, it was kind of hard to match up which anime went with which story. But yeah, I think you hit it right on the head there that it's going to be more of a lighthearted, fun adventure type story that we probably won't be able to take too seriously, but yet again, it'll be a lot of fun, hopefully.
Yeah, now watch. This will be like the dark episode of the whole
Right?
anthology. Like one where the kid hears the witch calling to him
Oh,
and then
yeah.
ends up leaving with the Sith later in the episode from season 2 of Vision. So yeah,
Could
this is
be.
different. That wasn't a Japanese studio, but you know what I'm talking about. Uh,
Mhm.
okay, so the sixth episode is called The Lost Ones. This is also by Kinema Citrus Company. The description is: after assisting refugees escape a natural disaster, an incognito F is forced to confront the ghosts of her past when the refugee ship is intercepted by the Empire. This is the follow up to The Village Bride from season volume 1, I should say, of Visions, and it's directed by Hitoshi Haga. So I really like this description. That sounds like very much like a Star Wars type of a thing that they're doing there. However, the Village Bride, my memory is that I only kind of felt like that was average when we watched it. But what are your feelings?
Yeah, I remember I don't know why The Village Bride really sticks out to me, maybe it's the title, but yeah, I mean, the ghosts of her past, that's always a fun thing to not fun, but you know what I mean. It's always an interesting thing to glean into because I'm a big one into the backstory kind of stuff, and looking at those kind of things are always intriguing to me.
Yeah, I mean, my thing is that the Ghost from Her Past could just be the previous episode. So I don't know. It's
True.
it'll yeah, we're gonna give them all a shot. I mean, they're not that long. It's not that hard to get through them. So we'll see when we get to it. But moving on, the seventh installment is called The Smuggler, and this is by Trigger. And it is described as: a desperate for a quick payday, a smuggler takes a job to rescue a fugitive from the Empire. And it's directed by Mashiko Atsuga. So again, I'm not sure that I could tie any imagery from the teaser to this or not, but if we're going by vibes, this is Han Solo, right? I mean,
Sure.
desperation, trying to get a quick payday. The difference is that taking on a job to rescue a fugitive from the Empire. Well, that's kind of like what he did, helping out Luke and Obi-Wan do a rescue Princess Leia. So I could see what the inspiration for this might have been. But what are your thoughts?
I mean, there's really not a whole lot to go on with this,
Right.
and, we've had our fair shares of smugglers, and they always have a place near and dear to my heart, so Well, I guess we'll just, yeah, I once again just have to see. I know I keep going to that, but I have nothing majorly prophetic to say.
Uh-huh. All right. The eighth and the eighth episode is called "The Bird of Paradise" by Polygon Pictures. It's described as after she is blinded in battle, a hot-headed Jedi Padawan must undergo a series of spiritual trials in order to overcome the temptation of the dark side. George Takei's got a voice in this one, so like I said, I wasn't going to name
Cool.
everybody, but we all know who he is from Star Trek, and then of course he did Locke Durd in the Clone Wars. This is directed by Tadi Yoshihira. Yeah, sorry. So this one is interesting because it seems like there's I don't necessarily call it a trope because that might be disrespectful here, but we can all think of the number of images from various anime and Japanese cinema of like the blinded samurai, right? That
Mhm, mhm.
can use their other senses to determine what's going on, or Chirrut Imwe from
Right.
Rogue One here that is blinded, but they still have these combat skills that they can put into place here. And then you blend that with Star Wars and the struggling to resist the dark side. I'm intrigued by that. This seems very much like a Japanese type of a thing to do, and I'm eager to see what they did with it.
Yeah, and I have to say, this one I think is the one, if I had to put kind of a name with a face, I'm speculating that this is probably the one where there's a young Jedi that is leaping backwards through
Uh,
all of this mayhem, and that's the one that I was talking about. Just the color on that one is just absolutely gorgeous, and I wonder if that is the one also because the title on this one, The Bird of Paradise, also has me intrigued because the flower itself, Bird of Paradise, is also extremely colorful, but it also has a kind of a symbolism and optimism and hope. So I love the fact that they're playing off of that if that's the case. So yeah, I'm with you. This one is definitely up there on my I'm really excited to see it list.
mhm, mhm. All right, and then the last episode in this anthology is called Black, and this is from David Production, which is a very Western sounding name for a studio, anime studio. But it's described as a psychedelic battle between past and present, light and dark, and life and death plays out in the psyche of an Imperial trooper who is on the cusp of defeat. It's directed by Shinya Ohira. Now, this is the one I think they showed an excerpt of at New York Comic Con or maybe San Diego Comic Con, one of the cons recently. And I know a lot of people are really intrigued by it. And you just said you were. I'll be
Yes.
I'll be straight. This description doesn't do a whole lot for me. I don't know. It's when I was looking at StarWars.com, at least at the time, they didn't have any voice cast for the English dub, but they did have two people for the Japanese. So I'm not sure what that's about. I'm assuming there isn't really much in the way of dialogue, and it's probably mostly grunts and things like that. But yeah, I mean, again, I'll give it a shot, but it's not high on the list of ones that I'm looking forward to with this volume of Visions.
Yeah, what really intrigues me about it is one, I just remember when we talked about it the first time, one of the things that was said was that you've never seen anything like this before. Like this is totally, totally different than any Star Wars that we've ever seen, and that there is really not any talking. I don't think
Right.
at all, right? And so, wasn't there more music to the background of this? But it's just kind of all over the place and sort of this like trippy kind of vision almost. So I don't know. For me, it's so different. It's either going to be so different that I'm going to go, "Wow, that was fantastically different," or it's going to be so different that I'm going to be like, "Wow, that really sucked."
Wow, that was different.
Oh, and not that not to like put down anybody's creativity or anything here, but maybe it just won't be for me. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's just I'm going to watch all of them, and I'm prepared for any of them to surprise me when it comes down to it. But just looking at these, the ones I'm excited for the most, of course, as we kind of talked about, the Dual Payback, the sequel to the Ninth Jedi, and the one about the Bird of Paradise. Those are the three that, based on the descriptions, are the most intriguing to me. But that could completely change after we watch them, because it's with just that description, these one sentence descriptions, it's just not a lot to go by. And again, with the inability to pair up all the visuals to all of these, it's a little hard to
Mhm.
determine, to set expectations. So,
It is.
yeah, but we'll definitely be talking about it. I mean, I'm envisioning that we're probably going to cover like 3 of these a week for 3 weeks. And then, that's how we'll get through them, but we'll see when we get closer to time.
Envisioning. I see what you did there.
No pun intended. All right. Okay, we got one last story to talk about, and that is we have received an excerpt, which you can read over on polygon.com. And I'll try to remember to put the link in the show notes, for the Master of Evil, which is the upcoming novel from Adam Christopher, which will be released on November 11th. And it is telling the story about Darth Vader after Revenge of the Sith, I guess, as he is establishing himself in the Empire. And in this particular excerpt, he has returned to Coruscant and Palpatine after bleeding his kyber crystal on Mustafar. And then when he gets there, he reports to the Emperor. The Emperor kind of senses a thirst for knowledge and power in Vader. And the Emperor's got some things to say about that, but he ends up kind of putting Vader in his place with a blast of Force lightning, and ends this by kind of cautioning Vader that while his power is something that a Sith should seek, that he needs to be cautious that Palpatine is going to determine when and how Vader learns all the various Sith secrets there. So I've got some thoughts about this, but what did you think about the excerpt overall, Jay?
Well, Adam Christopher always knocks it out of the park. I always enjoy his writing. He's very, very descriptive, very paints a very vivid picture in your mind of what you're seeing and why you're reading it. And holy cow, I mean, we always know that Palpatine is been a puppeteer to Anakin his entire life. And in this particular excerpt, though, it just hit me how hard he really does build Vader up just to throw him back down, and we've often used, especially with Darth Maul, the idea of the Sisyphus analogy where you roll the boulder up the mountain only to have it roll back down again. But, it's just, oh my gosh. And I feel like he tries to almost gaslight Vader in a lot of ways. And he dangles that carrot of reconnecting with Padme in front of his face, like all the time. And it also hit me from this that, and I know it's not canon, but of course it's one of our favorite stories with Darth Bane and how he trained Zana, in that he really was more of the Socratic method with Zana and had her explore her own abilities and actually nurtured those. Whereas Palpatine's like, no, you won't learn anything until I'm ready to tell you that you're ready to learn it. And
Yeah.
it's like, dang, dude. But of course, we have the visualization of another cave in here. So, yeah, you talk about intrigued. I'm very intrigued by this book, even though it's a story that we feel like we've gotten before, and I'm all in. But what do you think?
Yeah, well, first up, the bleeding the kyber crystal, that was done in the Darth Vader comic, and Charles Soule wrote that story, and it was really quite fantastic. And so that's cool. One of the things that stood out to me here is that Palpatine acknowledges that there is a vergence on Mustafar, and then he openly ponders whether it was appropriate for him to send Vader there, or to reveal to Vader that there was this vergence there, and that may have been too early. He also dangles the whole thing about, I know what you're up to. You want this power so that you can try and reach across death and reunite with Padme. And Vader's not shy about saying, well, that is what you promised me when
Right.
I
Yeah.
agreed to join you there. But, it's interesting. It's with the relationship between these two, Palpatine, in Return of the Jedi, he has the gall to say, rise, my friend, calls him a friend in this
Mhm.
situation. And I really don't think that's a relationship at all between these two. It is Vader, I don't think has loved Palpatine since he fell to the dark side in this case. This is the man that dangled the knowledge of how to, as you were suggesting, the knowledge of how to save Padme from death right in front of his face. And then when Anakin did fall to the dark side, he's like, well, no one but Plagueis has ever really managed this, but I'm sure if we work together,
Mhm.
will be able to figure this out. Well, then Padme dies before they can do that. And now it's kind of like, well, yeah. And then Vader calls him out on it. It's like, this is what you promised me. And he's like, well, I will reveal things to you in my own time in this situation. So he's really trapped Anakin. And then he goes out of his way to remind him about who's got the power here by blasting him with Force lightning in
Yeah.
this situation here. And so it's it's an interesting thing. I think this goes on to define the relationship in so many of the other stories outside of the films that we've seen. I mean, my position has always been that when Palpatine contacted Vader and says, he's felt a disturbance of the Force, that, the son of Skywalker is out there and he cannot be allowed to become a Jedi. And then Vader says, well, if he can be turned to be a powerful ally, that was them essentially saying the time is now, that we're going to find Luke. We can turn to the dark side. We're going to have it all out. 3 of us are going to be in the room. 2 are going to come out. That was how they were going to resolve the conflict between Palpatine and Vader at that point. One of them was going to go on and Luke was going to be the apprentice, or Luke wasn't going to step up and they would, move on from there. So anyways, as you can tell, I've got a lot of thoughts and I don't want to get into this too deeply because I have a feeling this is getting explored a lot more in the book itself. But I'm very, very intrigued by this, and I am very much looking forward to this book coming out next month.
Yeah, me too. And I think to myself oftentimes, is the only reason that Vader decided to stick it out with Palpatine because he really did some way, shape, or form think that he was going to be reunited with Padme? Because what was really his motivation? I mean, at what point would he maybe have said, "You know what, Palpy, I'm out. I got friends on Pabu. I'm just gonna go hang out, like I'm getting out of here." Like, just get away and completely sever his ties to Palpatine. I mean, have you ever thought about that?
Well, my thoughts on Vader's motivation after this was, and this is also something Charles Soule kind of explored a bit when we covered the series of Vader's Castle. When he built his fortress on Mustafar, and
Right.
then ultimately used it to open a rift in the Force and went to try and find Padme. Well, it didn't turn out well in that situation,
Mhm.
and it's partly because whatever that it was, the Force, it was Padme's spirit, whoever. Spoilers, sorry. Kind of reject him in that regard. But it's like, what did he have left but Palpatine? It's the only relationship he's got left in this galaxy, even if it is one based on hate. What else does he have? And there is this notion that think back to Revenge of the Sith, which is like, I know there's things about the Force that the Jedi aren't telling me. Well, now there's things about the Force that Palpatine is openly admitting he hasn't telling Anakin.
Right.
He
Yeah.
ends this whole segment by saying is that there's no power in the Force that is not mine, for I am the dark side here. And so he's dangling that knowledge there. And the whole idea is that eventually the Sith apprentice becomes strong enough to challenge the master, and then one will move on as the master, and then they'll take a new apprentice. Always 2 there are. But I also think it's like, again, as I was kind of talking in circles here, but Vader is taking out his hate, his fear, on the galaxy. And what does he hate? He hates himself for what has happened, for
Yeah.
what's become. He hates Palpatine, but that hate is also fueling him and his power. That's where the Sith get their power from. So I think it's a much more complex question, and probably one we should go ahead and table till we actually read this book and see what Adam Christopher
Yeah.
has to say about it. Because it's an intriguing prompt that we got here, but I have a feeling that we're going to get a lot more insight into that once we read the book.
Yeah. Just over a month away.
Yep.
Ugh,
Yep.
Vader's so tragic. I mean, the more that you look into him, I mean, just the more tragic it gets.
Indeed. Indeed. All right then. Well, that's going to be that's going to do it for our look at this week's Star Wars news. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Podcast Stardust, and if you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing on your podcatcher of choice. We'd also appreciate your ratings and reviews wherever you leave them. That does get the show in front of more people via the algorithm and however that works. And once you've done that and you want to check out more episodes of Podcast Stardust, one of the best places you can do that is over at retrozap.com, where the previous catalog of all the previous episodes in our catalog can be found. And Jay, you want to go ahead and remind everybody where they can reach out to us on social media and where else we've got a presence on the internet?
Absolutely. Very easy to find us. We are at Podcast Stardust on all of your socials, including Facebook and Instagram, YouTube Music. We also have tons of Pinterest boards, and we're also on Spotify, Audible, literally anywhere you can find your podcasts. And we sure would appreciate you sharing that out with your friends. And also, if you would tag us, if you would, at any point have any reactions to any of our episodes, we would really appreciate that. And also, we have a TeePublic store, and you can pick up one of 7 different show logo designs available on all kinds of products, from apparel to home goods and everything in between. And once again, if you do happen to grab something, please snap a picture and tag us on one of our socials, because we would love to see where those products end up out in the wild. And all of those purchases do help to support the show. So once again, hit up that link in our show notes to head over to TeePublic.
All right, upcoming on the show on Monday, we are discussing part 2 of Lego Rebuild the Galaxy Pieces of the Past. Can't wait to discuss that here in a minute. And on Wednesday, we are discussing the High Republic finale, which is a one-shot comic that wraps up the High Republic, as the name suggests. So stick around for that as well. But with that, just want to say thanks for listening to episode 947 of Podcast Stardust, everyone. Have a great weekend. And until next time, may the Force be with you.